The appointment of Mr. Alhaji Momodou Ndow-Njie and Mr. Yusupha Ba as members of the Gambia Armed Forces Council in accordance with Section 1891G of the 1997 Constitution and Section 131G of the Gambia Armed Forces Act by the Honorable Minister for Defense.
You can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this August Assembly do consider and confirm the appointment of retired Colonel Momodou Ndow-Njie and Mr. Yusupha Ba, former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Defense, as members of the Armed Forces Council. Honorable Speaker, in pursuance of the 1997 Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, Section 189, subsection 1G, and as part of the security sector reform on defense, His Excellency, the President of the Republic and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, has granted approval for the establishment of the Armed Forces Council, which shall comprise the following: the Vice President as Chairperson, the Minister of Defense, Chief of Defense Staff, and the Armed Forces Chief of Staff, Commanders of the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Defense, and 2 other persons appointed by the President, subject to confirmation by the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, I would like to inform this August Assembly that there has never been a functional Armed Forces Council in the history of the Gambia. It is my ministry's belief that the establishment of this council with this caliber of people will significantly assist in the oversight processes and democratic civilian control of the armed forces. The roles of the armed forces are clearly stipulated in Section 189, subsection 2 and 3 of the Constitution. Retired Colonel Momodou Ndow-Njie was one of the founders of the Gambian National Army in 1984 and became its first commander of the same year. He attended several military training in the Gambia, in the United Kingdom, and in France. He has vast experience about the Gambia Armed Forces and knowledgeable on military operations. He also served as the ambassador of the Republic of the Gambia to France. Mr. Yusupha Ba has MSc in International Agricultural Development from the University of California, Davis, MA degree in History and Political Science from the University of Botswana and Swaziland, as well as a BA in Sociology, Economics, and History from Botswana. He is a retired civil servant who has served in various ministries and capacities, including the Ministry of Defense as Permanent Secretary. He also served as Ambassador of the Republic of the Gambia to Cuba. He is a very experienced public administrator, planning and management. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable Member for Basse, want to say something?
For second minute, indeed. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I rise to second
observation. Observation.
I don't raise any point of observation. I was.
No, the speaker
You,
should
you
say.
preempted me. I thought you
Exactly.
had a separate observation.
No, no.
Okay. Can the honorable member please second the motion? Yes, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to second the motion on the appointment of retired Colonel Momodou Ndow-Njie and Mr. Yusupha Ba as members of the Armed Forces Council. Honorable Speaker, the motion before us has referred us to the 1997 Constitution, Section 189, subsection 1G. With your permission, I want to read that section. Honorable Speaker, Armed Forces Council. There shall be an Armed Forces Council which shall consist of, and I want to compare the dictate of the Constitution with the provision on the motion. The Vice President as a chairperson, the Minister of the time being responsible for defense, the Chief of Defense Staff, the Armed Forces Chief of Staff, the Commanders of the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry responsible for defense, 2 other persons appointed by the President subject to confirmation by the National Assembly. So in this regard, we can see that the motion has followed the due process of the law and it is constitution friendly. Honorable Speaker, it further continues on the subsection 2 that the Armed Forces Council shall advise the President on all matters of the policy relating to defense and strategy, including the role of the armed forces, defense, budgetary and finance, administration, and any other matter which the President may refer to the Council. So, Honorable Speaker, if anybody has to do that, the first thing that we need to question whether you have the capacity, the skill, and the experience. And I think the paper before us, the way these 2 people were described, is enough to convince us that these people are people of experience, they are people of skills, and they are people of knowledge. So we don't have any doubt that if they are given this post of responsibility, they live to expectation. On that note, I want to support the motion and call on my honorable colleagues to give their blessing to this motion. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I beg to resume my seat.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I now put the question. It has been moved and seconded that this Honorable Assembly do consider and confirm the appointment of Mr. Alhaji Momodou Ndow-Njie and Mr. Yusupha Ba as members of the Gambia Armed Forces Council in accordance with Section 189, subsection 1G of the 1997 Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia and Section 13, subsection 1G of the Gambia Armed Forces Act. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Thank you. Now, any honorable member who wishes to take part in the debate may do so by raising his or her tag. Actually, Kantora was the first one that caught my eye, and then Jara is.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. I equally want to thank the member for Basse for seconding motion and being very brief. As alluded by the mover, the transitional government has mandates, and such mandates are prescribed. Among the mandates, there's a promise to usher the this country into another new dispensation whereby the issue of security sector reform would be conducted and many other mandates given to the coalition government. There is an outcry about this issue of security sector reform. It's long overdue, and I want to tell the minister that it's a right move in the right direction. There is a need for the establishment of this particular council in order to enable and expedite the security sector reform. And of course, the two persons in question, we could not agree with you more that they are qualified and they fit for this position. Going by the 1997 Constitution, Section 189, 2A, B, and C. Looking at that qualification, they should serve as policy advisors of government or to the president in issues relating to defense and strategy, which a Doyen who served in the First Republic and also served as a custodian. Founding members in 1984 and become a commander of the Gambia Armed Forces with a vast experience in military and intelligence. The second person in question, of course, the job also requires technocrats to advise government, issue of policies, issue of administration, and even issues of promotion of men in uniforms in the ranks of lieutenants, colonels, or its equivalent. So there is no doubt that the two persons in question are definitely the right people, and they are also the right persons in the right positions. I am convinced that they're not around a peg in a square hole. And without wasting much of the time of assembly, this should not take much debate. Going by the qualification, going by the experience, wealth of experience, assembly should not label to approve this confirmation. And if you permit me, I want to move a motion that the intervention is restricted with 3 minutes per member to expedite this process. I thank you so much for your indulgence.
Probably one would have tabled the motion prior to taking the floor. You spoke for more than 3 minutes, so I don't think it would be fair to. It should have been done earlier. Thank you. Yes, Honorable Member for Jara East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. I rise to drum of support for the motion earlier presented by the mover with regards to the appointment of these two refined gentlemen. Madam Speaker, going through their CVs, one is definitely impressed by virtue of its colorfulness. The CVs of this, Madam Speaker, the duo, are quite impressive and colorful. And Madam Speaker, I have no qualms with regards to their appointment to their various noble offices. Madam Speaker, what they have done for this country speaks for itself. As the old adage, has it, that action speaks louder than words. Madam Speaker, Merces Ndow and Diba are household names in the Gambia. Madam Speaker, Mr. Ndow has served this country with distinction. During my formative years as a child, when I was in my teen, I used to hear this gentleman's name. When he was the commander of the Gambian National Army, he served with distinction. And as a result, his name becomes a household name throughout the Gambia. I could remember very well when the Gambia Armed Forces was in its formative stages. This man was there trying to build up the fledgling army, and he did extremely well in building the army to where it is, Madam Speaker. I think it is no doubt that people who have served faithfully, diligently, their country with distinction are considered for such prestigious positions. Madam Speaker, when you come to Mr. Yusupha Ba, he was a consummate civil servant, a patriot in his own right, and he also served diligently. And both men are deeply rooted in the Gambia. They have served faithfully. And I want to thank them for having been considered to serve the Gambian people. Madam Speaker, I just want to highlight some what I consider as anomalies. Madam Speaker, when people are asked to go to Parliament for confirmation hearing or what you call it, it is done for a reason. Madam Speaker, if you go to our standing orders, 114, it says for scrutiny. And it goes without saying, there has to be an article of evidence. I have no qualms with their standing. They are gentlemen par excellence. But Madam Speaker, if we are going to consider nominees or appointees, I think if you have seen their CV, it is not enough to say, I have attended St. Augustine High School, University of Cambridge, University of London. This has to be accompanied with evidence, certificates. I could remember vividly when we were considering the first nominee for the portfolio of Ombudsman in the person of Babukar A. Sware. He presented to this August Assembly a comprehensive CV with hard copies of certificates, the schools he attended, the courses, because it will help in attesting to the certificates he claimed to have earned. These two refined gentlemen, they have done extremely well, but I have not seen, yes, they attended prestigious institutions, but I have not seen the hard copy certificates. And Parliament is about scrutiny, and we are human beings. That's why we are considered as not infallible. If you want to make an inquiry as to whether what is before us, in terms of their impressive resume, the schools they claim to have attended, where do we stand? But if you have certificates, hard copies, that will serve as an article of evidence. And I believe fervently in this August Assembly, evidence must always precede decision. That's my detached opinion. That's what we are called a parliament. Evidence must always precede decision. evidence must always precede decision. That's very key. Because that's the time we can bank on to say, yes, Mr. X or Mr. Y is well grounded in this domain. Because there is evidence to produce. But not to say he attended University of London, University of Cambridge. Yes, they may be prestigious universities. I have no doubt. But the critic in me is not comfortable. And I would like the mover to tell me, I know it could be an oversight, but they should have been accompanied with hard copy certificates. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Honorable Member for Serekunda. Serekunda, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we are not dealing with an ordinary institution. This is, in fact, the key institution for defending the sovereignty of this land. And that is precisely the reason why the Constitution has given it the focus it deserves. We are informed of the need to equip this force under Section 186, subsection 3, in order to maintain its capacity to perform the role of defense of the Gambia. Honorable Speaker, this institution, the Gambia Armed Forces, under Section 187, is given two fundamental functions. It is clear that it has a principal role to preserve and defend the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Gambia. To aid the civil authorities at their request in emergencies. We're talking about border controls. It is clearly stipulated in the Constitution that in terms of national disaster or emergencies, they could be mobilized to serve the national interest. To engage at the request of civil authorities in productive activities such as agriculture, engineering, health, and education for the development of the Gambia, which means that they can build up an engineer corps to be building educational institutions, bridges, causeways, anything imaginable. And Honorable Speaker, armies now in the world are transformed into productive institutions that conduct research, build technology, and in many instances serve as the core facilitation of industrialization in many countries in the world today. And here the Constitution is providing for that capacity to grow to that level. Honorable Speaker, subsection 2 move into what I will call, ignore the language, civilianization of the armed forces, so that it will not just be seen as a tool, as a killing machine, but it will be seen as human beings serving a particular purpose. And then under subsection 2, they are supposed to assist in building a national youth service and provide them in training, that the same armed forces shall establish training programs for their members at all levels to equip them with skills and trades, to ensure that the programs that they develop, there can even be secondment in order to prepare them for civilian life. That they should not just be kept there and used just like they are there to carry weapons, but that we must prepare when they move out of the force. Honorable Speaker, it says under subsection C, there shall be established an army reserve. Imagine, Honorable Speaker, people who just protect, and ultimately you move out of the force, and you have nothing else to look back to, no community to belong to. The army, because it trains the person to be able to use a weapon, cannot lose control of that individual. Therefore, the army becomes a home where the person belongs to a reserve, can be called upon in times of emergency or anything to come and add force to be able to achieve aims. So that community must be made. These are fundamental objectives of the Army, Honorable Speaker. So in that sense, we are told that there is an Armed Forces Council that has been dormant. And now the objective is to activate it. We are being asked to carry out our constitutional duty under Section 189. We are very clearly informed, and we can see it in the Constitution, that there is official representation in the Armed Forces Council, but there is also unofficial representation. And the unofficial representation constitutes two persons who will be appointed by the President and confirmed by this National Assembly, because they do not belong to official positions in the Council. That is why scrutiny by us is important, because these are people going in to an institution as outsiders. And that's why the scrutiny is so fundamental. Honorable Speaker, we must look at what this Armed Forces Council is supposed to do. First of all, under Section 188, we are told that subject to the authority and direction of the President and of the Armed Forces Council, the Chief of Defense Staff shall be responsible for operations. So we're seeing here civilian control of the military. The President, the first civilian, but now the Armed Forces Council, with these two people who are unofficially are not members of the armed forces, are now to take part in controlling the direction of the Army and their performance. That is the relevance here. Honorable Speaker, it is clear that it is this Armed Forces Council that will advise the President on policy under subsection 2 of Section 189. Advise the President on policy. Will also advise the President on promotion. Will advise the President also in terms of performance in making regulations. They will be making regulations. This is not an ordinary institution. And the regulations will assist in terms of control and administration of the armed forces, the issue of ranks and their promotion, conditions of service, the authority and powers of the commanders, the powers that must also be utilized to establish research and development in terms of the service itself. So essentially, and if you go to 190, Section 190, in fact, this is where their powers become more crucial and fundamental for reshaping the armed forces and ensuring that whatever the President does is done in line with the interests of the country, not out of his own volition. Honorable Speaker, Section 190 says that the President shall after consulting the National Security Council, shall, after consulting the National Security Council, it's mandatory for him to do so, appoint the Chief of Defense Staff, the Armed Forces Chief of Staff, and the commanders of the Army, etc. And if you look at subsection 3, the President may, after consulting the National Security Council, remove. There we can see that the President has absolute authority to do the removal, but here it is a may, and the may is after consulting the National Security Council. So in this sense, we can see that the appointment is where the council must ensure that the right people are appointed. And here, the may in the removal, they may be consulted, they may not be consulted. But essentially, it is there that the President should, at all times, endeavor to do that consultation before removing the Armed Forces Council. So the people who are appointed. So in that respect, it gives the opportunity for element of scrutiny to know that what is being done is in the national interest. Honorable Speaker, I must therefore emphasize that those people who are to be appointed must be skilled in knowing the armed forces, in knowing how to facilitate its development in the areas that have already been mentioned. But they must also go further into issues of administration, issue of promotion, service rules. So we are talking about two dimensions here: operational issues and also management issues. And the two people brought before us are said to be competent on command and control issues of the armed forces, and we've seen their history. We've also been told that another person is experienced in management, to have gone to the level of even being a director as far as running the Management Development Institute. So you cannot go any further in terms of management, in terms of policy, in terms of planning, in terms of programming. So the competence is there. But as the member has just said, and as consultation was being done with the member who seconded the motion, the issue is not about the competence. The issue is about consistency in how this National Assembly intend to go in order to ensure that proper scrutiny is done and proper advice is received by the National Assembly in order to be able to make our decision. So ultimately, Honorable Speaker, it is my mind that we should give justice to why Section 114 of the Constitution is actually established. And if we all agree with that, then maybe ultimately a motion will be made to that effect. Honorable Speaker, Standing Order 114 says that the Public Appointment Committee shall consist of the chairperson, etc., etc., but that it shall be the duty under paragraph 2 of the Public Appointment Committee to scrutinize, consider, and advise upon all appointments to a public office to be made by the executive and subject to the confirmation of the National Assembly. So if that is our language, our wish, well, I believe I don't need to express my mind in that regard, but it's left to the members who may ultimately consider whether in this instance, because of COVID-19, we may wish to alter our mind, but essentially the mind must be spoken for us to consider. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Woolly West. Yes, you are on the list. Is it? Yes.
Well, is that a motion you make or what?
No, I'm just throwing it to you.
Okay. I'm going to be very brief. I'm delighted because first, I know these individuals very well. Ndow, when he was going to school here, Gambia High School, I was teaching in Bakau. Our homes were pretty close. And my home was a point of convergence for students and others like them. And when he finished Gambia High School, he joined the Gambia Field Force. We still continued. My home was also a place of convergence. I know him very well. He's a very dignified person, a sober-minded person, an independent-minded person, intellectually very rewarding, and he is just the type of person that this council would need for its operations, particularly with the military experiences that he has. I have no doubt about him at all. I know him very, very well. For years, I have known him since he was going to school up to the time. I would say that I was also a mentor to him. I mentored him. So I know what type of person he is. His academic qualifications are not in doubt. They are indicated here, but I agree 100% with the Honorable Member for Jara East. The National Assembly makes decisions based on facts, not just like that. So for people like them, we need to be adequately informed because maybe there are many who are applying. There are many who want to be. So what is going to determine eventually is what their achievements are in terms of education, in terms of experience. So it is important that we are always armed factually to be able to make a decision here, which is a decision made here should be unshakable. And it can only be unshakable if it is based on facts, concrete facts. With regard to Yusupha, same. I know him very well too. Even before he became a lecturer at the college, I knew him. When he was a lecturer at the college, I knew him. When he became a civil, I knew him. And it's delightful to discourse with him. He's a person of huge intellectual resource. And I have no doubt that he would be very, very useful on the council for which he is being considered. I thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you.
Observation, ma.
Point of observation. Oh, okay.
Observation, please.
You should have raised your tag while
Yes.
he was on his feet to make your observation.
Yeah. Now, what I'm saying is that it seems that the minds are really on bringing evidence based, and I also want to observe that this, if it's going to be referred to the two committees, Security and Defense and the Public Appointment Committee, to sit together to go through it and then report.
No, Madam Speaker, observation.
You've had your say. Let's allow others.
Exactly.
If anybody wants to move a formal motion, the choice is yours. Honorable Member for Lower Nyomi. Thank you. Honorable members to make use of that.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for giving me the floor. I would wish to reiterate the points that were raised by the member for Serekunda in reference to Section 187. I had on many occasions stood here to cry over the exclusion of the armed forces not being engaged by the government in the production of agricultural needs for the nation. I hope the Council would have the vision to help in that direction, given the fact that we are importing rice almost every year to an astounding amount of money. If this amount could be, our most common word would be vied to the armed forces, I'm sure they will be able to produce a lot of rice for the people, build roads. We start engaging the army Let's not put them in air-conditioned rooms. Let's put them under the sun so that we start benefiting from the expertise of people like Yusupha Ba, Ndow-Njie, and others. Let's challenge them. It is under the purview of the armed forces to train the National Youth Service. Get them co-opted and then train so that it would be a wider force, because at this present moment, a good number of the armed forces are discouraged, frustrated. Either they have spent a long time without promotion, or lack of consideration, and they've been working under very hard conditions which they have not seen any light at the end of the tunnel for the benefit of themselves and the nation. Let's start thinking otherwise. From holding guns to holding hose, from running trucks to running machines that would give us something that would be beneficial to the nation. Armed Forces Council, okay. We establish an Armed Forces Council, and that's the end. It should not be the end. As highlighted by the member of Serakunda, based on the provisions of Section 187, 186, they could go beyond that. Let anybody who is enlisted in the army tomorrow understand that you are not going to be in Bakau, you are not going to be in Yundum, but you will be up country there, helping to feed the people of the Gambia, rather than crisscrossing. Madam Speaker, that's my mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member for...
I have a motion, Honorable Speaker, to make.
Yeah. Under what section are you coming?
Yes.
What provision?
Yes. Clause 53C of the Standing Order. Honorable Speaker, we are not doubting the experience that these individuals have, but actually we want to perform or have documents about what the Honorable Minister is actually telling us about these two individuals. As a result of that, I want to move a motion that under clause 53C, the debate be adjourned and the motion be referred to the relevant committee, that's Security and Defense Committee, to better scrutinize and request the Public Appointment Committee, to request the documents that are stipulated in the motion given by the Minister and better scrutinize and inform this Honorable Assembly. Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor. It is seconded. Yes, Honorable Member for Upper Fuladu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to second the motion.
Moved and seconded that the debate be suspended and the motion be referred to the Public Appointments Committee for scrutiny and for them to report back to plenary. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no.
No. Division.
No, I will take a chance.
Division.
Let us take the votes properly. Those in favor, please, can you raise your tag so that we take the count?
Take another voice vote. That's the time, George.
Or let me take another voice vote. Right? Okay. Those in favor, the motion is for the debate to be suspended. To be suspended, and the motion referred to the Public Appointments Committee for them to report back to plenary. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those not in favor, please say no.
No.
Well, as I said, I don't want to take a chance. Let me take a vote. I'm being asked whether I can join, but some people can shout and others cannot shout. So it's safer. Let's take a vote, please. Thank you. I don't think there's any harm. Those in favor, just raise your constituency tags. Those in favor. We take from this side and from that side. No, Honorable, with all due respect, we've already announced the votes. I mean, to take the votes. The noes, please. Those not in favor. Those not in favor. Yes, of course, you have a right. Good. Thank you. The results are as follows. The ayes 27, the noes 7. So the ayes have it. The motion is carried and the debate is hereby suspended and the motion referred to the Public Appointments Committee for scrutiny. But in the meantime, please, Honorable Minister, can we have the relevant documents to the Office of the Clerk so that, thank you. Yes, you are released, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable members, you must have observed that as per our agenda, we were to consider 2 other items. But as of now, we still have not received anything from the Office of the Clerk has not received any documents for circulation to honorable members. And based on that fact, I would suggest that we adjourn this extraordinary session sine die, considering the fact that the next ordinary session is in June 15, and that FPAP will continue with the consultations and engagement of Minister of Finance. I would therefore suggest that we adjourn the session sine die and allow the FPAC to proceed accordingly with finance. It was just by way of your information. And that, may I now put the question? Sorry, Honorable, please, can we have one meeting, please, 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 please? Central body, but please, can we have one meeting? Thank you. And on that note, I put the question, be it resolved that this August Assembly do stand adjourned sine die. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. The Assembly now stands adjourned sine die. And I thank you very much for your cooperation and understanding. Thank you. Please, can we, honorable members?
All right, thank you very much, guys. Today, you can see we have 2 agendas to discuss in the National Assembly. Earlier today, we have the confirmation of Bakari Sanyang, who was earlier, been appointed as by the president to be the ombudsman of the Gambia. And this matter was transferred to a committee in the National Assembly, that's the Public Appointment Committee, to look at and scrutinize and advise the National Assembly what to do. And that has been done, and they advised the Assembly to confirm the appointment of Bakari Sanyang as the ombudsman. Earlier today, the Minister of Defense, Seo Marfai, also tabled a motion before the National Assembly for the appointment of two gentlemen of this country, that's retired Colonel Momodou Ndow-Njie and Yusupha Ba, former permanent secretary, and he was once time a Minister of Defense and a member of the Gambia Armed Forces, to be appointed in the Security Council of the Gambia. So this motion was tabled before the National Assembly, and it was seconded, and debate started in regards to the whole issue. But later on, a motion was raised by Omar Sise, for the matter to be transferred to a public appointment committee and the Committee on Security and Defense to look at the two gentle people and advise the National Assembly members on their appointment. So the Assembly has sigh and die because there is no motion coming from or no bill from the executive in regards to whatever will happen, meaning that the Assembly has no agenda. So they have sigh and die, meaning that we will not have the state of emergency coming from the executive to the National Assembly unless the president decided to use his powers vested in him under Section 32 of the Constitution to declare a state of emergency for 7 days if the Assembly is on session. If the Assembly is not on session, for 21 days. And hopefully tomorrow we'll hear this declaration from the President, since they have no intention to come to the Parliament to table a state of emergency. And earlier today, we believe there was a motion to, that was there was an information sent by the minister that we will have the we will have the supplementary appropriation bill will be tabled before the National Assembly and the revised budget. But I think now the executive have put all those ones behind now. They just want to concentrate on it. So they, according to the speaker, nothing has come from the executive. So meaning that the Assembly has no agenda. They are sign and die until another extraordinary session. It has been your brother in the National Assembly. Thank you for being there. I will always be there for you. Bye until we meet another session.
Where is this guy? This fellow committee. Select committee. State of emergency. Thank you. So now the government has is Halifa part of that?
No, CDF. I don't know vice chairman.
So if you're in a
Syria, you can talk to Syria. Jack Mariama is the chairman.
Speak. No, this state of emergency issue.
Yeah, you can talk to any of them. So that they chamber. It did. Go.
Can I bring a mobile of 5 minutes? You man the cameras and me.
No. Acha. No.
Can I okay, sign your bullet down. So,
Honorable Maron, today we have it here. We were expecting that there would be a motion or a bill coming from the executive for the state of emergency, so that we can look at the situation of the COVID-19, for prevention, to prevent the spread of the virus in this country. But today we were informed by the Speaker of the National Assembly that they have not get any information or anything. There is nothing on their table to discuss about. So meaning that the Assembly is signed and die until another extraordinary session. Meaning that we will not have the state of emergency coming from the executive. What does that mean, and what is your take on this one?
Well, I think what it means is very, very simple, because if you look at some of our recommendations, the recommendation from the select committee on the special select committee, they were requesting for 21 days, and then the executive wanted for 45 days. The reason the executive came with the idea of 45 days is because if it is 21 days, I think the president have the prerogative to declare that with a state of public emergency when we are not in session. So as I'm speaking to you now, we have adjourned sign and die. So the president now have the prerogative to declare state of public emergency, which is going to be 21 days. And then also not only there, but there is a lot of acts. Let's say there's a public health act that the president can use. There's a series of acts that the president can rely on and then declare a state of public emergency. So still there is a possibility. Once the session has been signed, we've been adjourned signed and die. Now the presidents have the opportunity to declare state of public emergency of 21 days because we are not in session. And then and then there's all those acts there. The Quarantine Act is there, Public Health Act is there, and series of acts are out there. So the president, the executive are now going to rely on those acts, to declare a state of public emergency. And we are quite sure that maybe either today or tomorrow, the executive will come up with something to declare a state of public emergency, which is going to be 21 days.
What did this will have the impact of? Because we have seen the earlier state of emergency since they were working with the National Assembly members. Like the National Assembly also have the oversight function, but now this one is coming from the executive without the approval. Do you think that the National Assembly members will have an influence in regards to monitor the funds that are coming, to monitor the laws that have been governed about the state of emergency? Will you have any say about it?
Well, what will happen now is that because before, when we declared state of public emergency for 45 days, we didn't just stop there. We also established a committee, a special select committee, that was doing an oversight on how our COVID-19 funds are spent. So what that committee is doing now, at least when the president declared there is no committee, of a special select committee will no longer be functioning because their term also expired. So it shows that now the parliament, the state of public emergency will be there, but we will have less to do with it. Yes, we have our committees. The health still can roll out, the education committee can roll out, and other committees can roll out. But it cannot be compared to when we declared from the parliament here, that's like the first 45 days, where we have a special select committee performing an oversight, going around touring the country, knowing exactly what the executives are doing. So that one will no longer be there. So it shows that, at least we should have just approved for 45 days. We, look at some of the restrictions that are there. We see how to improve on them, other than this, allowing the executive to just declare. Because executive declare now is simple. Our committees, our mandates has expired. There is no special committee that is going to perform oversight on the executive as I'm speaking to you.
Yeah. With recommendation to the National Assembly, so meaning that they will be there, they will monitor themselves, and there will be no, because at the first one there was a report that was tabled there just 2 days or 3 days back by the time, because they had been monitoring the state of it. But this one coming from the executive, meaning that we will not have the opportunity whereby the National Assembly members, select committee will come with a report to say that, okay, after the state of emergency, this is what we have gathered from the health, from the border posts, from other things. It will be only exclusively on the executive, or other committees could have done that.
Yeah, that's how it's going to happen, because right now we don't have a special select committee. Their mandate has expired, so they cannot perform oversight on the executive. And now all the opportunity that we have now is that, like, let's say health committee will roll out, education committee will roll out, defense committee will roll out, but it will not be as effective as the special select committee, because we've all seen what the special select committee did. They tabled a report to us at the parliament, and then we discussed on that report. That's why we require those recommendations and the resolution to the various committees to look at it and then come back to them again and give them the report, and then that special select committee will just come back to the parliament again and lay those reports. But now we don't have that one, so there is no post there. I can say it will not be effective as it is with the special select committee.
Thank you, Honorable.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.